Welcome back, everybody. Sarcasm speaks. Jared, Bob, and Jones is back with us. Jones is making his triumphant.
Yeah. Blink twice if you're having a stroke.
Yeah. Do you guys smell burnt toast?
Yeah.
Um, Jones is making his triumphant return. It's been a while. Um, Happy to have you back on. But I kind of want to continue what we were just talking about before we hit record because I thought it was kind of interesting and somewhat funny. So I was talking about how shitty my computer is, as I often do lately. But I bought it in like 2014, I think. So I've had it for at least, you know, 10 years, right? Going on 11 years. But then we're just talking about TVs, right? And I was like, I feel like TVs are something that you don't purchase out of necessity. I feel like they're things that you just buy because you want a new one.
Or you punch a hole through it or something.
Yeah, or you pull a Vinny and trip and hit the dresser and it falls off and it smashes.
That's not exactly what he did.
Or a different time with Vinny where he stubbed his toe,
And punch
put
the
his
TV.
fist through the TV. But yeah, so like you said that you replaced the TV upstairs, right, Jones? So you had it for like 16 years. And that made me think I have a TV downstairs in the like dining room kitchen area um that I bought my freshman year of college. So it was 2010. It's like a 26-inch Vizio, and I got it for my dorm room, right? To sit on top of the desk in the dorm room so I could watch TV and like play video games and shit. And I still have it. So that thing is about to be well, not it's solidly 14 years old, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's 14 years old. I was gonna say it's going to 15, but not really, because I started college in September of 2010. So we just hit the 14-year mark with it, and it's still going strong. It still works, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it doesn't have any of the fancy like, you know, USB-Cs or whatever, but it's got like one HDMI port because that's all you needed back then, and it's also only 26 inches. Like,
Think Suckatron would have lived if it didn't get rained on.
oh, for sure. Yeah, Suckatron did not want to die, even though
No,
it,
kind of went down like a bitch.
yeah.
A little bit of rain, and it's just like I'm out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, from the rain part, sure. But I mean, like, just like from a breaking it apart standpoint, I feel like
Oh yeah,
it
no,
took a
that.
lot of effort
Yeah, did not realize how hard it was to
to break a TV.
dismantle and destroy a TV.
And it would
Yeah.
yell at you.
It would hiss at you like the fucking geese.
Jones, I hope you're just as disappointed to find this out as I was, but Dats was at Bridgewater for a football game a couple weeks ago for one of his athletes, and he said he did not go to Tower Lot to check and see if Suckatron was still there.
I don't care if
That's
Suckatron's still there or not.
I bet you it still is.
I
For
bet you
sure
it
it still
isn't.
is.
I bet you it isn't because the fucking frogs need to like be frogs over there or some shit. Like
If
you know
they
how
have
that's like. Have you heard that like there's like a problem with frogs crossing parking lots and shit?
frogs being gay.
Yeah, maybe the frogs are gay. I don't really know.
Yeah, they're turning the
Is
frogs
that?
gay. Just ask Alex Jones.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like an Alex Jones thing.
Yeah.
Um, no, it's like a frog habitat or turtles. I don't know. It's one of them. Like frogs or turtles. Like, but they cross Tower Lot. At this, it's probably a turtle because probably nice and fast, and they just go fucking splat because it's a fucking parking lot.
Yeah.
But
With
like that,
college kids.
that's their route for like doing whatever. And I guess that's like a problem. Like when you build like within their like habitat, like the turtles cross the fucking parking lots and shit.
Huh.
So I assume Suckatron's gone because it's like a turtle fucking sanctuary or a frog sanctuary or some shit.
Hmm.
You'd think they'd know that before they built the tower.
Well, you see, no, 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 no. It's one of those things like when the college goes to build a parking lot, they're like, yeah, we're gonna build this parking lot. And then after the fact, someone notices it's like, oh shit, there's a lot of turtles kind of like walking through here. Like, what the fuck is that? And it's like, oh, I guess it makes sense because like they move from like high to low. Actually, I don't know how fucking turtles move, like just besides slowly. But it's like, oh yeah, no, it makes total sense that they're gonna go from high to low because it's, the fucking Virgil equinox. It's like the what?
Everyone knows turtles only go downhill.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's like how the fuck would they get
But
uphill?
how do they get back up the hill to get to down the hill?
Must teleport. They go
Yeah,
around.
they figured out teleportation.
Um, so yeah, it's where the turtles are. One of my kids was telling me, she's like, "Oh yeah, I see the turtles, so I go pick it up and like make sure it doesn't get like go splat." I'm like, any chances like an old TV in there or something? She's like, I haven't seen one.
That's an odd question. Why do you ask? Oh, I don't know. I just knew a
Oddly
couple. I
specific.
I knew people that might have put one back there.
No, I don't care. I mean, we're past statute of limitations at this point, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, shout out to TVs, I guess, and being made good and stuff. Um, so one of the like one of the actual reasons I wanted Jones to come back on is just because I missed him. But
You know,
um
Phil,
not to be all gay about it, like a frog or anything. Should we start saying that? Should we make that a thing? Call it no frog? Because you can't say homo anymore because it's not PC. So if you're like, no frog,
No, you got to go the other way.
all frog all the time.
No, 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 no. Like, just like no gay retard or something. Like, you have to double down the opposite direction.
um, so there's also a lot of political stuff going on lately.
Why?
We're 1 week away from the election, and Jones is a big political correspondent, if you will. Words are hard today.
So before you get into it, I did talk to my mother today. She's working like the early voting, the mail-in ballots, whatever. And she's gonna work like the election day, like at the polls.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so did you like vote while you're there? She goes, no, I can't. I'm working. I'm like, so you're gonna vote on election day? She goes, no, I'm working that too. I go, so what did you do? She goes, oh, I did a mail-in ballot. I go, you did a mail-in ballot from your own fucking city? From within your own city, you did a mail-in ballot. She's like, yeah, well, what else was I supposed to do? I go any other time. You don't work anymore. She's like fucking Sonny Koufax, like working 1 day a week, going like, don't know when I'll vote. And then she's like, man, there's like thousands of mail-in ballots. I go, well, there are thousands of people that live in the fucking city that clearly aren't going to fucking in person, you being one of them.
Yeah.
I just can't believe like thousands and thousands. Like there's fucking 60,000 people that live there.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to wait in line on election day.
Well, I also get it too. Like if you want your votes to, like if you're the political party, it's like, I'm going to send these mail-in things to everybody. That way it's like, maybe they won't go, but maybe they'll mail this stupid thing in.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though it kind of doesn't really matter in Massachusetts,
It doesn't.
but
Nothing matters.
nothing matters. It's all stupid.
Anyway, back to it.
Um, so a couple things before we get into like some of the real political stuff. Jones actually also listened to the Trump on Rogan episode. Um, what'd you think? What was your biggest takeaway?
my biggest takeaway is probably Joe Rogan's probably the best interviewer going. I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, but I truly think he's probably the best interviewer going. Um, I thought it was very fair. He kind of tried to rein him Trump in on a few things. I liked that he pressed him on the 2020 election. I thought it was pretty fair. I thought it was pretty fair. That's the biggest takeaway I had.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I think my biggest takeaway was like how normal Trump was. Like the first like 45 minutes was kind of Rogan trying to keep him in line and get him to actually answer the question of like what was it like versus what did you expect when you got in? And he just wouldn't answer the question. Um, but once you got past that, they were just like shooting the shit. And it's like, oh yeah, he's just like a regular 78-year-old guy from New York City.
Yeah, I noticed like he had a few, like 3 or 4 times. I noticed like he was just rambling on about shit. I mean, yeah, he's
Yeah.
17 years old. That's gonna happen.
Like he was telling a couple of stories about how he didn't say it explicitly, but he said he basically had to call politicians in New York and like work with them, right, to get some of his buildings done, meaning like he had to fucking pay him, right? Like that's I just thought that was hilarious that a former president and the most likely next president basically admitted that he used to pay politicians to get his buildings built. um So that was a thing. And the biggest thing that I got from it, and I did some research and I did some digging, and I think I am on to something here. So I alluded to this in the last episode with Dats, whenever it was that we talked about it. I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before, but I said my favorite part of it was at the very end, like the last like 20 minutes. Rogan asked him about JFK, right?
Yeah,
And Trump said he was going to release the files, but someone asked him not to, and he said, you know, when people are still alive that are involved, you typically don't want to do that for, obvious reasons and things like that. So I'm like, all right, let me check this. Like, let me get some dates, right? Let me get involved. Let me see what I can figure out here. Because I had a hunch, right? There's all those rumors. We've talked about on the show before that George H.W. Bush was involved in the assassination of JFK. Um, so I go, all right, let me just kind of figure this out here. So the original release, and Trump did release some. I think he released like 50%, right, of the JFK files. Those releases came on I think it was like April 26th of 2018, right? So in April, call it just in general, in April of 2018, he didn't release all of the information. And now I'm going to jump back and forth on the timeline here, but like last week, he said that you wouldn't release information like that if it's going to, you know, uh, incriminate someone that's still alive. Well, H.W. Bush died in 2018. So I go, I got to find out when he actually died. He died in November of 2018. So Trump was planning to release the JFK files in April of 2018, got some advice from his advisors that was like, hey, don't do this, right? If there's people that are still alive that were involved, let's not do this. So what did Trump do? He released the 50% and then said the next 50% will be up for release in 3 years, right? So in 2018, 3 years from then would have been April of 2021. Assuming, right, that, H.W. Bush, who was kind of really fucking old at that point, wouldn't have lived another 3 years. And also, that would have been the beginning of Trump's second term, right? So I am doing my Pepe Sylvia moment here, which shout out to Always Sunny and Pepe Sylvia. I forget what day it was, but it might have been Sunday or Saturday over the weekend. Was like the 14th anniversary of that when that episode originally aired. Um, but I did my Pepe Sylvia stuff, and I am convinced that Trump had a plan, right, to release the JFK documents. People said no, right, because H.W. Bush was involved and he's still alive. Trump was like, okay, well, the guy's like fucking 89 years old or 92, however old he was then. He goes, how much longer is he going to be alive? Who knows? I'll release everything that I can. I'll kick it out 3 years for renewal. And at that point, it'll be the beginning of my second term, and HW is probably going to be dead by then. Well, lo and behold, HW did die in November later that year, but Trump didn't win in 2020. So he didn't get to release the information. And Biden's not a fucking, he's not the same type of person as Trump, right? So he just extended it again, right? So I didn't, that, I stopped there. I didn't look to see how long Biden extended it for. It would have been funny if he extended it for 5 years, right? So it would have been just outside of Trump's term. So it would have been eligible for release in what, 2029. Um, but but still, I thought that was interesting. And again, it's a little bit of a Pepe Sylvia moment, but I think I'm pretty sure H.W. Bush was involved in JFK's assassination. And I think that those dots connecting makes a lot of sense.
Certainly makes sense.
Because we
Usually
heard the
feel like,
rumors, right? It's not
yeah,
my idea, right? I was also right. Like this isn't. I didn't come up with this novel idea that George H.W. Bush was involved in the JFK thing. I'm not smart enough. I'm not involved enough. I got that from other people, right? That's a legitimate rumor that people talk about that he was involved in the assassination. I'm just looking for ways to prove that point.
I just hope he gets more alien stuff out there too, though. I really want more alien crap.
Tell us about the aliens.
Remember, so I did just look it up, and so when they say it's like, oh, we're going to release the JFK files, they released like 2,500 documents last year between like June and August. Now, I didn't look all that hard because, frankly, I don't give a fuck. Because if anything important had come out, we would know about it.
Right. It would have been
So
all
it's
over Twitter.
2,500 documents of bullshit. That's because, like, it's like all the file related to the assassination, and it's like travel to and from Cuba. Like, I don't know who, but like travel records to and from Cuba.
Yeah. Probably for Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's gotta be fucking 100,000 fucking documents. Like, if we're pulling everything
Yeah.
and they release 2,500 and no one knows, like,
Well, I mean, how long did the Warren Commission last? Wasn't it like 4 years or something like that?
no clue.
I feel like it went from 1964 to like 1967 or 68,
What was that?
the Warren Commission.
Uh fuck, the investigation into his death or his assassination.
Yeah.
Wikipedia is telling me formed 19 no November 29th, 1963, disbanded 1960.
Okay.
Yeah, they got a full year, but it was so that was an 888-page report to
Which is also
those.
wild. I know we've talked about that before, but Jones, you know all that craziness about how Gerald Ford was involved as like one of the heads of the Warren Commission, and then Richard Nixon was a hugely popular president. They impeached him for Watergate, right? Which, I mean, in 2024 doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? But whatever. They impeached Nixon, but before they got rid of Nixon, they axed his actual vice president, Spiro Agnew, for tax evasion. And
Yep.
then once they got rid of Agnew and then they impeached Nixon, who did they put in? Gerald Ford, who was the head of the Warren Commission, right? And it's like, what?
And the inventor of the car.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
Fucking politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Politics.
Like that whole Richard Nixon story is just mind blowing because he was a massively popular president, kind of similar to Trump, right? Like I think Trump is kind of the Nixon situation on steroids. Um, but I think there's a lot of parallels between Nixon and Trump there. hugely popular with the people, not very popular with the quote unquote deep state. So they do what they can to get rid of him. And they happen to be successful with Nixon, and they aren't so successful with Trump because that guy just fucking won't go away.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different time back then. Like
True.
you said, Watergate was the biggest fucking thing ever. I mean, now it's like, yeah, I mean, some dude from New York's doing it. Oh, big
Right.
deal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a completely different world, right? Like the newspapers back then were gospel, right? And now newspapers are like shit that you bring with you when you go camping to literally wipe your ass, right? Like it's totally different, which is another kind of thing that to stay on the political track for a little bit more. People are losing their minds because the big newspapers won't give endorsements. So apparently, the Washington Post decided to not give a presidential endorsement for the first time in like, I don't know, I think it's like 40 years or something like that. And everyone was losing their mind, be like, how could you? You're not supporting Kamala, all this. You're going to support Trump. And like Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, came out and made and wrote a statement that got published in the Washington Post that said effectively, I'm paraphrasing, goes, uh, Americans no longer trust journalists. Like true journalism is dying. It is my job as the owner of this newspaper to bring back the roots of journalism and true like bipartisan or nonpartisan, whatever terms he used, and tell the news as it happens truthfully without a political agenda. And like he had this like big whole long thing in it that was basically like summed up in that those couple sentences. And everyone's like, fuck Jeff Bezos, fuck the Washington Post. There were people, workers at the Washington Post that resigned. There was like multiple people that resigned from the Washington Post because they refused to support Kamala Harris.
200,000 people canceled their subscriptions too after that article was posted.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any like newspapers or like any kind of journalism has any. You're there to report the news. You're not there to take a side.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, so we just talked about, you just mentioned, Mel, that newspapers are fucking useless. What the fuck is the Washington Post endorsement even fucking mean?
Right.
And anyone that's like any of those 200,000 people, they already had their minds made. So
Yeah.
what the fuck does the endorsement matter?
Yeah.
You think
I've
some
read
idiot like gonna go to like catch the train, grab a Washington Post and go, huh, this newspaper's not so bad. Who are they supporting? Oh, that's who I'll vote for. It's like,
Right.
fuck you. Washington Post was probably like, oh, well, for your endorsement, it'll only cost you whatever. And Jeff Bezos was like, fuck you. I ain't paying you shit.
Right. Right.
like you're saying, that's like that doesn't appeal to the undecided. There's only like 7 to 8 million undecideds supposedly left in the country, but that's I still think that's way too high. I feel like probably half that. I would assume for a week out.
Yeah, you're a week out. There's no way there's that many people that are still undecided, right? It's just they don't want to answer the question or they're just not going to vote. Yeah.
Yep, president accounted for.
Yeah. Because that's another thing too that I saw earlier was that there is record turnout for early voting all over the country. There's been already over 50 million people that have voted so far. So in 2020 was a weird year because of COVID and the whole thing. There was 100 million people that voted either early or by mail-in ballot. So, both of them effectively got like 80 million votes. So call it like 160 million people. So 100 million of the 160 million people that actually voted in 2020 voted not on election day on November 4th or 5th or whatever day it falls on, right? So far this year, when there's not weird, goofy fucking pandemics or anything going on, we're a week out and we already have 50 million people that have voted, which I think is kind of nuts.
I
And
don't think the result any quicker, but I mean,
The
no,
result's gonna take longer. I think that
it,
so that's gonna be the shit that pisses me off. I'm gonna go fucking crazy when there's a record number of early votes and mail-in ballots. It's like, okay, good, so everything's counted. Well, no, not everything's counted. We need more time. It's like,
I mean,
no,
that's what they do in Pennsylvania. Like they don't unsteal all the mail-in shit until after election or like election night or something.
it's fucking nauseating. It's like it's like it's honestly it's a move right out of fucking Roger Goodell's like book. Like, how can we make this election drag on even longer?
yeah, yeah.
Don't open the envelopes till after. And if you don't like what you see, like stall further. It's like fuck. Just want to know. Like there used to be a time where I could wake up in the morning and like someone would tell me who won and then we'd move on with our lives. And it's like now I don't wake up on Wednesday and know anything. I get more mad because more bullshit spewed from both sides. And we can't move on with our lives because people are going to look at this election like it's the most important thing in the world. And it's like, it's just not that important. It's just really not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as always, right? It depends on who you listen to, whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing for their side, right? So, like, if you listen to people that slant more towards the right, they're like, oh, this is great news. We've got over 50 million people have already voted early. That's great. They're all voting for Trump. That means that they're going out, they're hitting the stump for Trump. Like he's going to win so big, you're not going to be able to steal it, right? There's people are saying, oh, too big to steal, right? Like not this time around. Here we go. But then you listen to people that slant more towards the left and they're like, oh, well, I mean, early voting and mail-in voting, like everyone knows, like traditionally that's Democrat, right? So if there's already 50 million people that have voted early and voted by mail-in, there's like statistically, those are probably all Democrats. So like we're good. Kamala's going to win, right? Like Kamala's got this. Like if she's already got, a good chunk of those 50 million early votes, like we're in a great spot. This is amazing. That's like, well, both of those things can't be true, right? But again, this is the whole thing about just the landscape of 2024 and just today in general is people get stuck in their echo chambers, right? Of where whoever they listen to and what podcast they follow or what newspaper they read or all this stuff. And they're like, oh my God, obviously Trump's going to win. And then the left people are like, oh yeah, no, obviously Kamala's going to win. How could anyone vote for Trump? And it's like, this is literally how the last two elections went. In 2016, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Hillary's got this in the bag, right? Like, why is Trump even the nominee? That's so fucking dumb." And then Trump wins. And then in 2020, everyone was like, "Oh, dude, Trump's got this in the bag. Joe Biden can't even speak in sentences. Like, obviously, Trump's going to win." And then Biden won, right? And it's like, don't give me this like, "Oh, he's going to win in a landslide." He might, right? He might. It certainly seems that way. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he lost, right? Like,
The closest election we ever had. And I thought last year or last election was close, but it's a statistical tie, which
right,
is insane. And it's been almost a statistical tie for a long.
right, right. So, I mean, it's certainly going to be interesting. I think again, it certainly seems like he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to win big, right? Like he might, right? Like if I had to put odds on it, right, I would say the betting favorite is probably he wins by a small margin, right? Then I would say the second favorite would be he wins in a landslide. And then I would put third odds on she wins by a small margin. And then like at a massive, massive long shot, like the same odds as Trevor Lawrence to win MVP this year would be she wins in a landslide, right? If you have those are your four outcomes, either one of them win in a small margin or a landslide. Like I think the top two are probably him, right? By small and then landslide, and then her small is third. And then I think there's no fucking way she wins in a landslide, right? I think it's more likely that he wins by a landslide than she does, but I also don't think that's likely either.
I think. Well, you're gonna want to look at the Sun Belt, which is like the Arizona, Nevada, what they're looking like. It's
Bok
Pennsylvania,
bok.
and
So Rick,
so
I've got the gambling odds up, and I know we did this the other day. So Mel, do you remember what we had Trump and Harris at the last time I looked this up?
I think he was like minus 160 and she was plus 190 or something like that.
Okay, those odds have moved. He is now effectively minus 200 and she is plus 176. So betting odds have moved towards him.
Yeah.
And now Jones was saying some of these states. So Arizona, he's minus
he's in
300
North
to win.
Carolina.
Nevada, he's minus 193. North Carolina, he's minus 260.
Wow.
Okay, so things are trending his way.
He's even gained track. I mean, I remember New Hampshire, she was like minus 600 to win New Hampshire. She's only minus 490 now. So, I mean, she's still an overwhelming favorite to win New Hampshire, but the betting is going the other way.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times though. Betting odds, they're manipulated by money, right? So like
Right.
if the money starts piling in one way or the other, then the lines are going to move. That doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah, so
it's
the
reality. Like it doesn't necessarily reflect reality, right?
no, but you would think with the US presidential election, actually, so there's a couple things. Number one, you would expect there to almost be 50-50. But if you think about it, that's not true. It should be overwhelmingly Democrat coming in because that's what the majority of people are.
Right.
Also, an offshore account has the entire world or whatever countries allow you to. Like when I was in Italy, I couldn't go on fucking anything.
Yeah.
But parts of the world can vote on this thing. So like people in Costa Rica can vote on the US presidential election. Um so that means the bigger money is coming in on the Republican side. And they either think or they have insight as to why or the what. I don't think there's probably as much information floating around outside of like the opinions of trusted people, right? Like I don't think someone's got a link to someone in Arizona going, "Hey, I've been peeking at the ballots." Or like, "Oh, my cousin Jimmy just moved out to Nevada. He's counting ballots. He told me he'd take a peek for me."
Yeah. Yeah.
He's saying it's overwhelmingly for fucking 45.
47
Uh,
now. Could
well,
be.
he's gonna
Could be
win.
47.
He'd have to win.
True.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to follow the lines, but also we followed them. We followed them until we went to bed
It was
in
it
2020,
was 2020.
and he was. I want to say he was like a four to or like a minus 400 favorite at one point.
Yeah.
And then when everyone was asleep, it fucking flipped.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, and that's why everyone started talking about the whole fuckery going on. They're like, how is it possible that overnight there was a massive swing? Because it happened in 2016, but I mean, that was the episode that we did in the no.
We did 2020 in Mansfield.
Yeah, we did 2020 in Mansfield. That's what it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, in 2016, the swing happened that night.
It was
Like,
like 9:30.
yeah, like Hillary Clinton ended up conceding the race because she was beat, right? So it had to have been, like you said, like around 9:30. 2020, it literally just kind of happened overnight, which is weird.
That's what used to always. Well, again, back in my day, polls would close on the West Coast at 11. Everything would be fucking counted up. It'd be done by midnight.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I wasn't up till midnight, but the next day there was a concession speech, and you knew who the fucking president was. And except the Al Gore George Bush, because it was the recount in
Yeah,
Florida.
that went on for a month. They didn't
Yeah, but
announce the winner of the 2000 election until December.
everyone kind of knew like it wasn't Al Gore,
Yeah.
or at least that's I don't know. That was my oh, shit. That was my fifth
10,
grade
10-year
remembrance.
old interpretation.
Well, no, that's how I remember it. I just remember it
Yeah.
like going on and on. And I was like, oh, well, Bush won. And they were like, no, it's a recount. I'm like, okay, hanging chads, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, Bush won the presidency. I'm like, yeah, I thought we already knew that.
So yeah, I mean,
But rumor is Man Bear Pig is still out there.
somewhere. So one of the things I think is interesting too is the kind of to piggyback off of like newspapers are dumb, is that I think we're starting to see the change in media, right? Because both candidates now they're all just doing podcasts, right? Like Trump went on Theo Vaughn, he went on Andrew Schultz's podcast. He no, maybe just JD Vance went on Theo. No, Theo did talk to
They both did.
yeah, they both did. Theo talked to Trump. Trump went on Andrew Schultz. Obviously Trump just went on Rogan, right? So they've all been making the rounds. Kamala went on Shannon Sharp's podcast. She was on Call Her Daddy, right, with Barstool. So like they've all been doing podcasts, right, which no one did in 2020. Or I know, granted, yeah, it was COVID, but like 2016, like this is the very first election where presidential candidates have been making the rounds on podcasts, which I think is really interesting. Um, and I think I saw someone on Twitter. It might have been Elon on Twitter, but he tweets so much I can never keep his tweets straight. Um, it said it's just another example of how traditional media is dying, right? Because the candidates are recognizing that no one follows traditional media, right? I mean, look, we talked about in the last episode, Joe Rogan and Trump got 30 million views in less than 48 hours, right? And
I
just
think
on
it's up to
YouTube,
now.
only on YouTube, not his Spotify numbers either.
I saw it was probably yesterday. It was like 33 million on the Joe Rogan podcast when he did with Trump, and then Stern show with Kamala Harris like 30. So it was like a substantial gap.
Yeah. You say 13 million?
13 million, or maybe it's like 1.3 million, something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Stern's kind of fucking lame at this point anyway, too. So, um, that certainly doesn't help. But,
I will say I don't think it's gonna be as good because I can't fucking find it as easily as I could. He is at 39 million. 3 days ago,
Yeah, that's just on YouTube.
just on YouTube.
So, I mean, they already say that Rogan gets more than, Fox, CNN, MSNBC combined, right? And his average is like 14 or 15 million views per episode. Like an average episode, right, of Joe Rogan's gets 15 million just on Spotify, I think. Um, and this just on YouTube has gotten 40, right, in 3 days.
Yeah, which is about 40x
Right.
his average, I would say, and then 20x his next highest.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, why wouldn't you want to do these massive shows, right? But it allows, like I said before too, like it allows you to just kind of like show people who you are, right? And Rogan talks about this all the time. I've been listening to him for fucking ever, like a decade plus at this point, right? He talks about it all the time that when he meets with people, he just talks to them like people, right? He has genuine questions that he's curious about that he asks people. And he goes, there's a reason why my show has always been 2 to 3 hours long. And he goes, you can't hide for 3 hours, right? Like if you talk to someone in a 3 minute soundbite on a segment of CNN, like they can bullshit you, right? And they can say, oh, yeah, no, I believe this and world peace, right? Do the whole, Miss America thing, world peace. When you're sitting there for 3 hours, like, and you have to defend your thoughts and link your thoughts to something that you said 2 hours and 15 minutes ago. And we're like, that's weird because a couple hours ago we were talking, you said something totally different, right? Like, that's how you find out that people are full of shit. Um, and I like that. Like, I like the genuine aspect of it. And Jones, I told you this. I don't know if you listened to it yet or not, but yeah, it's, Tim Dillon. He's fucking great. Um, JD Vance was on the Tim Dillon show, his podcast the other day, and I listened to it today, and it was great. I've never actually listened to a podcast with JD Vance before. I know he went viral for going on Theo, right? Because Theo had made a joke about like not being able to do cocaine in this country anymore, and JD Vance started laughing, and it was a whole thing. I didn't listen to the episode. I only saw that clip a million times on Instagram and Twitter. Um, but I listened to the Tim Dillon episode today, and I thought it was awesome. Like Jones, you and I were texting, but I was like, the biggest thing that I took away from that was like he's literally just a regular dude. Like he's very well spoken. You can tell he's super intelligent, and like at least again, he's a politician, right? So let's not speak too highly of him, because we know what all politicians are. But at the end of the day, like he's somebody that you can sit there and be like, yeah, he's smart, he's reasonable, he doesn't, you know, seem staunch in really any of his beliefs, right? He came off, at least in this show, that he was like, yeah, listen, like this is what I think. And he was like, so other people are allowed to think differently too. Like I saw this other clip. I don't know what it was. I think he was giving a speech somewhere. And he even said in the speech, he was like, we shouldn't be ending friendships with people because we think different or have different political beliefs. He goes, if you ended a friendship with one of your friends because they voted for some person that you didn't like you have a problem, right? Like you need to figure that out. And it's like, that's the type of shit that we need to hear. Like that's the type of like politician that people need to kind of get behind. And I said this to you, Jones. I think he's the guy for 2028. Um, I mean, that's kind of how it works anyway, right? The vice president, also assuming Trump wins, right? It's kind of like the guy who was the vice president then kind of goes for it, right? Obviously, Gore was the VP with Bush, and um,
Biden.
Biden, right, with Obama. Obama wasn't a VP, but he was a little bit different. He was super young too at the time and just kind of timed the market right for him. Um, I mean,
I think that
coming off of Bush and Cheney, like fucking, you could have put a tin can for running for the Democratic Party, and that would have beat whoever the Republican was. Like that was tough. In 2004, um, that was McCain, right? In '04. Yeah. No, it was '08. '08, sorry. McCain was '08. Um,
so. Kerry was or no,
I don't know who
The
the
game was 08 because I did that shit in high
who
school.
yeah, who ran against Bush in '04?
Was it John
it was
Kerry?
Was it Kerry? Yeah, I think it was. Um, but yeah, so I
yeah.
mean, Bush was still riding off the high of, this is America, you're not gonna fuck with us. It was in Bush's second term when people were like, ooh, yeah, this guy kind of sucks. Um, he was also not, I mean, I people talk about this on podcasts, but they often say people forget, right? How much people didn't like George Bush his first year into office. Like on September 10th, right, of 2001, his approval rating was something like 35% or something like that. And then obviously September 11th happens and he goes out and gives a speech. He throws out, everyone goes, oh, he throws out the first pitch of the Yankees game. And then his approval rating goes up to like 70%. Right. And then, so his first term, he just ran off of the high of like, you're not going to fuck with us. This is America. We're going to hit you back type of thing. But they soured on him real quick in the second term. So that's what I mean, kind of like in '08 it's funny, right? Because in hindsight, if they really wanted Hillary to be in there or she really wanted to be in there, she should have been the candidate in '08 because she would have won. Because that's what I mean. Like you could have put out a tin can for the Democratic Party in '08 and it would have won, right? Because people were sick and tired of the Republicans and war and starting a new war in Iraq and McCain came in as a war hawk, right? And they're like, oh, all he wants to do is more war and this and that. And um, so yeah, but I forget how we even got there. They just started talking about
From
history.
vice president that eventually become
Oh, vice
president.
presidents. Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah. But yeah, I would imagine if Trump wins that Vance is probably going to be the next guy in 28. And I think he would be good I mean, I've listened to him on one podcast, right? So I've heard him speak for a
All it
cumulative of
takes.
about an hour and 20 minutes.
What could go wrong?
Um yeah, yeah, so I clearly know enough about him, right, to be a good judge of character. But he seems fine, right? Again, for a politician with the caveat.
It'll be interesting to see how the Republicans. We were texting this earlier. It'll be interesting to see if once Trump is out of the political sphere, if Republicans will say, "Hey, let's still latch on to this," or do we want to go back to what we were doing before? I think that's kind of what you're going to want to see the next cycle. Because I think Vance has a very strong chance of, if they still want to continue with the Trump era politics.
Yeah. And like you said, we were texting about this. I think the parties are in a really interesting spot right now because the Republican Party has turned into the party of reasonability, right? Reasonableness, whatever the proper, adverb is or adjective is there. Because again, you have guys like JD Vance being like, don't go end your friendships, right? Because you think you have different political beliefs from people. And the only politician that I will ever admit, well, outside of Tulsi too, that I will ever admit that I actually like, right, is Vivek, right? Vivek Ramaswamy. And that's been his thing his entire time. When he was running for president, that he dropped out and endorsed Trump and is doing the whole thing. Like, he's just a reasonable guy. He's like, yeah, listen, like, I think differently than other people. He's willing to have people come up there was a he posted a video, I think he was in Ohio at the time, where he was doing like a town hall, and some woman stood up and was like, you know, I really like everything that you're saying, but I could never vote for you because you're Hindu. Right. And Vivek stood there and took it and was like, I respect you for being able to stand up here and admit that to me. I appreciate your honesty. Like they went through, they talked it through, and the woman was like, I really agree with a lot that you had to say, but I just can't vote for you because you're a Hindu. And he was like cool with it, right? He wasn't like trying to cancel her. He wasn't being like, you're racist, you're fucking a bigot or anything like that. He was like, all right, I get it. It's like, I understand. I'm willing to still have the conversation with you. Like, that's what politicians are supposed to be, right? Like that's what they're supposed to do. So that's what I mean. It's interesting that the Republican Party has turned into that, right? And the Democrats are the fuck you, fuck this, you're a piece of shit, you're a bigot, you're racist, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, we're gonna cancel you. Oh, the Washington Post didn't endorse Kamala. Oh, we're all gonna quit. Oh, I'm gonna cancel my subscription, the Washington Post. So it's like they're so unreasonable, right? And they're just so angry all the time. Um, it's like it's literally like a party full of Karens, right? Like the Democratic Party has turned into the party of Karens, and the Republicans have been like kind of just chill about everything, which is a complete flip from like 20 years ago, right? Because obviously, like in the early 2000s, the Republicans were the ones trying to start all the wars, right? And be like, oh, look at all these brown people are bad. These brown people are the ones that came over and blew up the buildings in New York. We need to go fuck them up and kill them all, right? Like, oh, and all the Democrats were like, hey, man, like, let's just kind of hang out. Like, Democrats were the hippies in the
Fucking
60s.
it's saxophone on Arsenio Hall, 92.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, like I said, it's interesting how things have turned a complete 180 in 20 years, right? Effectively less, right? I would say 10 years. The last 10 years is when the change started happening. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. Will they continue on that way? I think probably, right? Because the future leaders, right, of the party, like a JD Vance, like a Vivek, Tulsi now, right? Tulsi actually just came out and announced that she was joining the Republican Party, right? So she's officially a Republican. Um, RFK is still technically an independent, uh, but he's obviously, he's going to end up in Trump's cabinet if he wins. Well, it's like all of these people are the people that are reasonable and like as normal as you can get for being a politician, right? Again, always having that caveat in there. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that means that it, because the other thing too is how is that going to be received by the other side, right? If Trump wins, right, are the Democrats, again, because we talk about this like in a little bit bigger of a picture, we're talking more of like the man behind the curtain, right? Like whoever is pulling the strings on the Republican side has kind of said like let's just be normal type of deal. But like the people behind the scenes for the Democrats, are they going to dig their heels in and double down and triple down and quadruple down on if you don't allow a 7-year-old to fucking get hormones, you're a transphobe and you should lose your job and be canceled and get doxxed and have your house egged and all this shit? Or are they going to be like, ah, shit, I guess people really don't like it when we kind of are, inflammatory and we're kind of all over the place. Like maybe we should tone it down a little bit. Right? Like maybe we should be a little bit more normal. Like I don't know.
The only
I don't
well,
know what the
if
response
it
is
all
going to be.
happens, they lose House and the Senate and the presidency.
Yeah, I mean, if
That's
they get absolutely lambasted, right, and Trump wins,
Would
and
you say a red wave is coming?
yeah,
Would
the
you?
red wave that never came.
I was gonna say I'm still waiting for the one from 2022.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't
still
even a
waiting for that red
it
wave.
wasn't even a puddle.
Yeah, was it even a nosebleed?
No, they lost. They lost the House. The House went to the Democrats. Or no, the Senate. The
Red
Senate went
wave.
to the Democrats. The House is still Republican.
It's funny because I like kind of forgot about that, the red wave.
Yeah, the red wave. Yeah.
They're still talk like that's how they spoke then, and they're still speaking like that now. So like, is there money to be made on fucking Harris? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, right?
Not that I'm gonna bet on politics, but
No, for sure. I also don't have my money in my bookie account anymore. So, and I'm
I
not going to
do.
deposit just to do that.
I do.
So,
Forgot about the red wave because they're talking like that again.
yeah.
The red wave's coming. Bring your
But
swimmies.
they're both kind of doing it.
They are, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Truly,
Like depending on who you listen to, like the both echo chambers think that they're going to win in a landslide.
I would have thought that polls would have been a little bit more insightful than this. You know, I think
Well,
we would.
Joe Rogan made a really good point on that Trump episode where he was like, I don't know one person. He was like, I'm 56 years old. And he goes, I've never met one person in my entire life that's ever that's been a part of a political poll. And Trump was like, yeah, I don't think I do either. He goes, no one's ever called me. He goes, I've never known anyone that's been part of a poll. And Rogan's like, yeah, who the fuck are they calling for these polls? Right? Because like they're not calling me. Right. And Trump kind of made the comment like, I think some of them probably make it up. Right. He was like, I think some of them are fake. I think they just kind of take your money and then they tell you what you want to hear. And then he backtracked quickly and was like, well, some of them are good, right? There's some polls that are good, but I think some polls are kind of full of shit. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I've never been called. Like
I
I get
wouldn't answer
stupid
if they
text
did, so I
messages, right? But
guess.
like, well, that's the thing. And Rogan says that all the time. And he goes, there's a certain type of person that's going to respond to a poll, right?
Yes, someone who feels strongly about their side.
Right. And so, how accurate are polls, right? Where like none of us know
Not.
anyone that's ever been a part of one of these polls. And even if they did call us, I wouldn't give a response. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I'm too busy.
Yeah, like so if someone's gonna like bother answering their phone and having that conversation, yeah, those are not the types of people that swing the election or make a
Right.
difference.
Right.
Because first of all, if you even dial a number in Massachusetts, that's a waste of time. Like, what's the point? Be
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, your call list is you're gonna call the Northeast. It's like, oh, okay, so you want me to call 100 households in Massachusetts? Yeah, yeah, okay, cool. Three, two. Call all those households. It's 65% Democrat. Oh wow, you got through to that many people? Yep, every single one answered me. 65. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't it
It's
crazy?
almost like an average of what they'll probably do.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of how it goes.
Well, remember, someone has to suck at their jobs. So some of these polling people, they have to make the number. It's like, fuck, I'm hungover as shit today. Like, I'm a Bears fan. And I just watched that fucking game this weekend. Like, I gotta call these people. I ain't calling half of them. I'm
Yeah.
making it up.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I mean, polls really aren't super reliable. Obviously, right? Because the polls showed that Hillary was going to win in a landslide in 2016 and she didn't. I think the polls in 2020 had it pretty close, right? Um,
Well, it's going to be this time too. It's going to be really, really fucking close. And that's like part of the reason why it's going to take fucking forever
yeah.
to sort it all out because I just think people are so politically charged these days that you're just not, I just don't see you getting a landslide.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see the total number of votes.
I would love for that to be like way down. But I don't think
because
it will be because again, I
yeah,
think people are too politically motivated.
because we got 160, like I said, we got 160 million. And I looked it
That
up.
was like a record, right?
Maybe. I mean, absolute numbers, yeah, it was probably a record, but percentage wise, I don't think so. Because I looked up how many people are eligible, and it's about 240 million people in the United States are eligible to vote. So like 160 out of 240, I looked, it was like 68% or 69%. Um, so I don't know if like maybe, in the 70s or prior to that, maybe in the 19 teens, right? We got like an 85% turnout, but because there was only
Yeah, it's way smaller
100 million
population.
people in the country then, like it was just a smaller number. So like as far as an absolute number goes, I'm sure 160 was probably the highest. But percentage wise, I don't think so because it was less than 70% turnout. So that's what I'm interested to see this year. Right? Do we beat 160? And if so, what is it? Right? Like do we approach 200? I don't know. That would be nuts.
40 million increase.
Yeah.
It's like a 25% increase. No way.
Yeah. I think realistically, an upper limit is probably like 185. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, oh, there's like 180, maybe 180 million people that came to vote. But again, just because they said there's a ton of people that have done early voting and mail-in voting, like I said, over 50 million already, and there's still a week to go. So it'll be interesting for sure. Um, you guys have anything else, or you want to wrap this up? All
I
right.
just heard a big fucking bang down there.
Oh, Leo
I didn't
running
hear a
through
yell.
walls.
I was gonna say,
Is he going to be the
I didn't hear.
Kool-Aid man for Halloween?
He has a Halloween costume. He's gonna be a unicorn.
Ah, nice.
It's like Ralph Wiggum sticking the fucking ice cream cone on his head. I'm a unitard.
All right. Well, Jones, you want to lead us off?
Yeah. So I went down a rabbit hole a few days ago. Um, so the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened in 1995, and was Black Sabbath was inducted in 2006, which is insane to me. But I think it was a couple days ago, Ozzy just got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2024 for his solo stuff. To me, that is way too long for him to just be inducted by himself now. Like, I feel like that's insane.
Yeah, that seems odd.
I can
So I
pull it up
looked.
quickly. All right, so I assume you're probably getting into this. I was gonna say I was gonna try to pull up like who is in this thing and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought he would have been inducted in 1999 with Bruce Springsteen. Just a
You mean
thought.
the working man?
Oh, the boss. Oh, he's just a
Yeah,
working man.
but
Just man of the people.
the criteria is kind of fast and loose, I think. So according to the website, an artist becomes eligible for inclusion in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25 years after they release their first album, which that could be fucking anybody. The Spin Doctors could be in the Rock and Roll Hall, you know? Uh, Also, nominators are asked to consider an artist's musical influence as well as length and depth of the career, in addition to innovation and superiority. Blah 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 blah. Ozzy redefined music with Sabbath and by himself. He had Randy Rose, he had Zach Wild. His solo work is fucking insane. I just don't understand why it took so long to induct him now.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I could think of is that people are like, well, he's already in with Black Sabbath. Like we're gonna put him in again type of deal.
Yeah. I would be like that would be my argument. Would be like yes, because his solo work warrants it.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree with you. I'm just trying to, you know, play devil's advocate. So I come out on top, playing both sides.
So his first, excuse me, Blizzard of Oz was released in 1980. I'm trying to look up the first two songs are insane. They're I Don't Know and Crazy Train. Like that should just get on
Yeah, I mean,
that.
Crazy Train is arguably one of the most iconic songs ever.
Like even if you don't like Ozzy, you know that song.
Right. Right.
But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that he's just. It might be because he's getting close to the end that they just want to shove this along. So
Yeah, it's a lifetime thing, right? Like you see it all the time, guys at the end, like, it's like, oh shit, he might die soon. Let's give him the Oscar, right? Let's put him in the Hall of Fame. Let's do what we got to do to like make sure we do right by him type of deal. Um, so yeah, I would imagine that probably has something to do with it. But I mean, I don't know who the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame voters are, but if they're anything like the BBWAA, I mean, they're
I think
probably like, "Well, he's already in. We're gonna put him in twice."
I think Eddie Trunk is still a voter, and he's been like uh with he was with MTV for a billion years, and he started being like a really snob metal purist and stuff. So he's got to be. It's got to be like one of those guys.
Here's another one. What did Led Zeppelin take until 1995 to get in?
Yeah, like some of these years are insane.
So,
Well, was it 1995 was the first year it opened, right? Is that what you said, Jones?
95 was the first year.
oh, hold on. What do I have then? I have something that goes back to 80,
Is it the British Hall of Fame?
86. Oh, I don't know. On Wikipedia, I got something going back to 86, but like
I mean, either
people
way,
of the people of 86 is like that's like fucking old people. That's like Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, Buddy Holly, like shit like that. Bleeding Gums Murphy. No one? Nothing? Did it? I was to say, please tell me
yeah,
someone caught that.
I got you. Yeah, like
Um,
Floyd
and then
was 90.
another, and then I would say then another interesting one. So 92, Clapton goes in with the Yardbirds. 93, he goes in with Cream, and then 99,
He goes in
he
solo.
goes in solo. Maybe it was 2000, but still, like, so Ozzy waited all those years, and Eric Clapton, it was in three times by 2000.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absurd. When you put it that way, that's dumb.
Yeah,
Steely Dan. Chef is in. Did you know that?
Oh, Jesus.
Because I did not.
That's got to be like a Harold Baines year.
Fuck, what you where do you go? Oh, it's not great.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chef's year 2002 was him, Brenda Lee, Gene Pitney, the Talking Heads, and then Tom Petty, and then or Petty and the Heartbreakers, and then the Ramones. So it's like a little top heavy there. Not a lot of depth, if you will.
Yeah, I mean it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and the Ramones, and then everyone else shouldn't
Yeah,
be
it's like
in.
who? And again, it's like I'm calling him Chef. Like, yeah,
like
dude, it's a weird when you scroll through it is like weird thing, man. Like,
yeah, like you're
uh,
trying to Genesis that got inducted in 2010 is more impactful and musically than Ozzy Osbourne.
well, I'm also looking. It's like so Black Sabbath and Leonard Skinner took until 2006. Like, huh?
Oh, you mean Leonard Skinner, the band with one of the greatest guitarists of all time?
Yeah, it's just it's an odd. Yeah, it's odd. Really weird.
Yeah, this is just insane. I was just kind of annoyed by that. That really bothered me the other day.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
days.
this could potentially be a discussion for another time, which I think it should be. But is there a point where you need to start splitting the Hall of Fame? Right? Like even if, right, you induct the best of the best, right? And you avoid the Harold Baineses and the whoever else was in the year of the Ramones, right? Um, if you have a Hall of Fame long enough, it's going to get very crowded, right? So like after 100 years of having a Hall of Fame, there's going to be a lot of fucking people in there, right? And then you add in bullshit like Craig Biggio and Harold Baines and fucking all these other guys that don't really deserve to be in there. Omar Vizquel, right? Like, do you eventually need to kind of have a separate Hall of Fame? Like, what do you do? Like, eventually it's going to get too big, right? There's going to be so many people in the Hall of Fame.
Of the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Guys. When you were this young, these were
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, it's just interesting, right? I mean, we can probably jump into that in another episode, but it's just one of those things that I thought of just now. It's kind of similar to cemeteries, right? Like eventually we're going to run out of space in cemeteries.
So we just start using garbage cans.
Yeah, I mean, you just light me on fire and throw me in the air for all I care, or in the trash, whatever. It's fine with me. I don't care. I'm dead. I don't give a shit what you do with my body. I ain't coming back for it. That's for sure.
That's a fucking odd list. Just scrolling through that. That's such a
Very
weird.
strange. It's very
Yeah,
bizarre.
yeah.
Yeah, like the timing of it, the groupings of it, just
None of it makes sense.
no, yeah, it seems fucking strange. When does Lincoln
Uh,
Park go in? Obviously, they're gonna make it.
yeah. Aren't they like, what did we figure out? They're like
I
the
don't even,
fifth
I
highest
forget, dude. It
grossing.
was something crazy.
Yeah.
They're probably coming up soon because when was Hybrid Theory released? If we're
Oh,
going by
like
25
90,
years,
98, 99.
Yeah. Was that their first album?
You think so?
I think it's 25 years, you said, after their first album.
yeah,
Oh, they gotta be up.
they gotta be getting close.
They're going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, hey, everyone's a fucking first ballot Hall of Famer.
2000, October 24th, 2000 was Hybrid
2025, Lincoln Park's eligible.
Well,
Oh, they're
2025
definitely
Lincoln Park is going in.
they're definitely going in.
Dude, Lincoln Park is great.
See, and it's like this little blurb. There's no surefire Hall of Famers from this list of newly eligible acts. Pink, Lincoln Park, Sufjan Stevens, and Gorillas.
Yikes.
Well, some of you haven't Googled Lincoln Park's record sales.
Yeah, because they
And
blow
some of you
everybody out
also
of the
probably don't
water.
realize that one of those things is certainly not like the rest of them. Like as fucking much as I hate Lincoln Park, it's like I'm sorry, but if the ballot is that, like those are the four highlights, Lincoln Park might be unanimous.
Yeah, could be. All right. Well, Dad, you got a final thought?
Yeah, I'll be quick. So, first project that I kind of took on at the house, building my garage shelves. I would like to say that I was able to make all of my cuts, all my lumber in one trip. I did have to go back to the hardware store because I ran out of screws, but um
That's impressive.
not to brag, but I completed a project without and I got close because when I was at the store, I don't even know what the fuck I was thinking because I had to buy smaller pieces of plywood because I couldn't fit them in my car. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have 6 foot long shelves. These are 2x4 boards, but then like the geometry like wasn't making sense to me for a minute. And I'm like, fuck, man, don't fuck up these cuts because you don't want to go back to the fucking store to buy another piece of plywood because you have a piece of plywood, but it's all cut in the wrong sizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make sure you fucking figure it out. Took me a second. Got it. But yeah,
But yeah,
everything's built.
humble brag.
Yep,
Only two trips.
just had to grab screws. That made me so fucking mad too.
Oh yeah.
Because then it's like I had some other screws, but I didn't think they were long enough.
Yep. Yeah, because that's one of those things like you definitely have other ones, but they're not the right
Well, remember,
ones.
I just moved here, so I don't have much,
That's fair,
but
yeah.
like now I'm starting to accumulate some random shit. But like
Yeah.
I didn't have much, so it's like I had some decking screws that I used, but they were short, and I had some like just general construction screws that were also short because I used them for a different thing.
Right.
Um, yeah, only had to go back to get screws. I didn't fucking go back 16 times, which is progress off Mansfield. That was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something.
The worst was when we did the path, the walking path.
Oh yeah.
Like we did all these like cubic yard measurements for fucking rocks. We took 2 cars to get like 20 bags. Not even fucking close. Like we
Nope.
didn't even have half of what we
Yeah, I was gonna
needed.
say it wasn't even halfway down the
It was
path.
like it was fucking ridiculous how fucking bad we were at that.
Yeah. Yeah, the cubic foot measurement I feel like is vastly underrated or undermeasured, right? It's like 1 cubic yard or 1 cubic foot or whatever it is
I want to
of
say it was like cubic
stuff
yards.
is a lot, like a lot.
And I want to say something too, like the 1 cubic yard was that like so say you needed like for that, I don't remember what we say you needed 50 cubic yards. Well, then you're buying rock by pound. It's like, well, what the fuck?
Right.
It's like
Yeah,
you're
if
not
you need
buying
50
like, oh,
cubic
hey, this is a
yards,
cubic yard of
but
rock. It's
one
like, no, this is
bag,
25 pounds.
I think one bag is half a cubic foot.
It was something ridiculous. But we fucking whiffed the math on that really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
That took that took 3 trips.
that was bad math. That was dumb math.
Yeah. And like that's the thing. It's like I'm not the best at math, especially like when shit gets complicated and I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like I don't even know if I'm right
Yeah.
on some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I guess we'll just keep buying more bags.
Yeah. And that's what I kept doing. So I was because it was like COVID times. So I was buying online. And then like the one time I bought online, I was like, oh, we'll send you a text when it's ready. It'll take 2 hours. And it's like it didn't take 2 hours. And then 5 hours later I went and they were like, oh yeah, we haven't filled that yet. I'm like, okay, well, can I go do it? And they're like, yeah. So I just started doing the order online, drive the 10 minutes to the store and being like, hey, I placed this order online. Can I just go fill it? Yep.
Yeah, fun times. So my final thought is to stick back on the political theme. Me and Jones were talking about this earlier today. Uh, we came up with a solution to fix elections, and it's to allow all states to deliver their electoral votes based on percentages of the popular vote, which like I think it's like 6 or 7 states already do that. I think Maine is one of them. Um, but it's bait
What,
like
all both of their electoral votes are up for grabs?
yeah, yeah. I think they have four. Um, but it's it's proportional to the popular vote in the state, right? So a couple things like, me and Jones were talking about earlier, it allows for pockets of like the forever states, right, to actually get some attention, right? Because if Texas has 40 electoral votes, right? Democrats don't spend any time in Texas because they know they're not going to win it because whoever wins, the majority popular gets all of the electoral votes, which I think is the dumbest shit ever. But if they knew that there was a chance where you could take 10 electoral votes, right? Like you could take 10% of the vote as a Democrat in Texas, you're going to spend time there. You're going to get to know people. You're going to see what they want for policies, right? You're going to see what the people need in order to vote for you. And then that's a good thing for politics, right? If politicians are more involved with the people, their constituents. Same thing with a state like California, right? They have like 55 votes. But if Republicans knew that they could potentially get, 20 out of that 55, they're going to spend time. Right now, it's all going to be in like the Malibu area because I think that area is very Republican. But, um, it's also going to invigorate, I guess, probably isn't the best word to use, but motivate, right? It could motivate people in those states to actually go vote, right? Because then your vote does matter, right? Like if you're a Republican or you vote Republican in states like California, New York, or Massachusetts, your vote doesn't fucking matter, right? But if the state gave out a proportion of its electoral votes that's falls in line with the popular vote, then your vote actually does matter if you vote the other way in one of those, forever states. So I don't see how we haven't figured that out already. Like I said, 7 states already did it. Um, I don't know why that's not a thing everywhere.
This is what we've been doing for 200 plus years, and it hasn't broke yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when you
Yeah,
have
great
when you
system.
have 350 million people in a country, you need you need something a little bit different, right? Like I don't like it when people are like, "Oh, abolish the electoral college." It's like, no, 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 no. That's not a good idea, right? Like that's how you end up with fucking 26-year run of just Democrats, right? Because there's more Democrats registered in the United States. The whole country would be run by interests in New York, LA, and Miami, right? Like just the largest is San Francisco, right? Like the largest cities would sway everything in the country. Like you just can't do that, right? Like you can't go straight popular, right? That's not the solution. That's not the best answer. Um, but the current electoral isn't great either, right? So why not have a proportion of the state, right? And then, like I said to Jones, like I'm fine if you want to put in a stipulation of like a 2/3 clause or like a 75%. So say like, you receive a proportion equal to the popular unless, you know, 75% of the state goes one way, then you get all of it, right? Then it's like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm fine with that, right? Like if you're gonna get 80% of the vote in Idaho, right? Like, yeah, sure, you can have all seven of, or probably less than that, right? Like you can have all five of Idaho's electoral votes because the Republican won 80% of the vote in that state. Like I'm cool with that too. If you want to add like those kind of stipulations, but I just think that there needs to be a lot more uh I would call it common sense involved, right? Like if a state like Florida, for example, is really close to 50-50, right, in the popular vote, whoever wins, right? It doesn't matter whether a Democrat wins or a Republican wins. Like, I don't think it makes sense to give them all 35 votes. Like if it was 55-45, right, it would be less because there's other parties, right? But effectively, if it was 55-45 one way, you're gonna give the person who won with 55% all 35 electoral votes. Like that sounds dumb. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean,
So
the way that we were thinking about it, I mean, that's truly a democratic election. Then you actually get people who vote for X candidate, that district, that county, whatever. That'll strip votes away from it. It just makes sense,
yeah,
which is why it'll never happen.
true, very true. But I mean, it could, right? Like I said, there's already a handful of states that have done it. They're just not the big states, right? It's the states that only have like four electoral votes. So it's like, all right, cool, you are already meaningless. Now you're even more meaningless because I'm not even going to get all four of your votes if I win your state. So I don't know, but who am I? Just a common retard. But so that's gonna do it for us. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe up above, hit the thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you're an audio only guy. Leave us a review on Spotify and iTunes. You can get us on Instagram at Sarcasm Speaks Pod. Twitter is Sarcasm_speaks. Facebook is Sarcasm Speaks. The website, sarcasmspeaks.com. You go to the merch store. Oh, I have it. Jones is back. He's got the coaster. It still lives. Get yourself a coaster. It'll last longer than a 16-year-old TV. And check out the show notes. Support those sponsors. Support us. And until next time, good night, everybody.